Hi, welcome to the new episode of Startup Strides. Today, my guest is Sophia Arora. She is leading growth at Jack and Jill. Welcome, Sophia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No,
I'm
I'm
excited.
same. I'm very excited. We're both tired. We mentioned before starting recording, but I've been seeing your posts. I love them. You have very cool and interesting takes, and also Jack and Jill. I am familiar with it. Um, so I'm really excited to dive in. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to jump into the questions. My
Yeah,
first question is, and one of the posts that really resonated with me, was the one, you were talking about kind of career stuff. Um, you started your career at McKinsey. And when I was in college back in the US, MBB and investment banking were seen kind of as universal launchpads, right? There were signals of capability, discipline, and optionality, regardless of where you would end up long term.
mm,
Um, do you think that still kind of holds true? And I guess a follow up to that would be, what made you leave McKinsey and join the startup world?
yeah. Um, I guess that's a good background setting. So I went to McKinsey straight after university. It was 2021. And in 2021 to 2023, I think it was the best 2 years and the best place I could be at that point of in time. I learned so much from being able to work across different industries and toolkits and in how to work with different teams. You switch team and the people you work with every few weeks, and you work from finance to consumer to energy to industrials. And it helped me discover what I love, which was consumer and brand. So um, I think it's an amazing upskilling and start to your career. But that was now 4 years ago, which feels like a short amount of time, but actually so much has happened. And if I was to tell a younger sister whether to go to McKinsey post university, probably not no. And I guess that's what your second question about why I left. I didn't feel like I was learning quick enough anymore. I felt like I'd exhausted my learning.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Do you think that, in terms of your peers and friends who've might have left also MBB and joined, startup. Do you think that's kind of like a common notion, common feeling about not learning quick enough and fast enough?
Have amazing friends at McKinsey that are definitely some of the smartest people I know. For me, I just saw this shift happening in AI. And last year, I felt quite terrified that I was getting left behind. I have a humanities background, I'm generalist. And I did move to New York after McKinsey and worked at a beauty company called Oddity Tech. And I loved the pace and the tangible impact of building and delivering an output that felt really real, like a product to consumers. So for me, consulting just didn't align with what incentivized and motivated me. And then I also saw a shift happening in AI and felt FOMO that I wasn't a part of it and playing in that sector.
You mentioned AI as a nice segue to our next question, which would be, AI is obviously reshaping everything. And with it, the job market too, especially for junior talent, right? For students who are just starting university or in their first roles out of uni, what would you advise to them to focus on right now?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the notion of showing, not telling, even if you're a generalist. I think that there's a lot around what you can do if you're technical and engineering, and I'll probably focus on the more generalist and go to market side of what you could do, which is now insane with AI. Like I have never made ads before. I'm not a content specialist at all, but I create a lot of our Jack and Jill ads with AI workflows like Arcads, Gemini. Um, there's so much out there, Higginsfield, and within just a month of learning about these tools and picking it up, it's given me so much creative license and inspiration to do something that I've never been able to do. And anyone can do that and create content, for example, like you're doing. And it doesn't have to be your full time role, it can be something you do part time, but it's a really good way of that hypothesis of showing, not telling, and showing that you could deliver real value to a lot of startups. Like distribution and content is such a big part of how you now win in this industry. So if you can show that you can build followers, build impressions, create compelling content, like that is an incredible asset to a lot of companies.
Interesting. So do you think like this notion of building in public, right? is something that kind of needs to be incorporated in most of the early stage startups now.
Yeah, I see, like, we're trying to do a lot of build in public, and I see everyone doing it. Um, there's it's hard because in reality, you also have to focus on building a product that's worth building in public. Like, you don't wanna I think in America, there's a lot of hype and people show off and over exaggerate a little bit. Maybe that's a good thing, what they're doing. And maybe in the UK, we take a bit more of a step back and try and really focus on having something that's worth showing in public first. I think there's a balance. And it's just about how you like split the time between building incredible product versus having your engineers or your founders just creating content.
That's an interesting take. I'm curious because you experienced both sides of the Atlantic, right? You were in New York for a bit, and then now you're obviously
Yeah.
part of the team in UK. And you mentioned briefly that I'm curious, like, what do you like about kind of like the startup culture in US, and what do you like about the startup culture here in Europe and UK?
Yeah, it's a very topical question that you asked this because I actually got an opportunity to film the AI minister in Parliament who's working on a vibe shift in London so that we better celebrate the wins of founders here and just really own taking risk. What I like about America is people are proud to say they're working hard and hustling, and grit is so respected. Whereas in Britain, I feel like my generation, my friends that are so talented and equally as smart as the talent on the other side of the pond, if not smarter, play it down, and we have like a more of an aversion to risk. And I think that vibe and culture shift is what is needed for us to win and compete with Silicon Valley. It's not that we don't have the same talent, it's that we don't have necessarily the same um imagination and ambition that we should have in order to like make our realities real.
Fair, fair. Um, One question I wanted to ask at the beginning, I kind of forgot about it, was, and I think I have the answer, but I still want to hear from it. I want to hear it from you. Was, you know, a lot of people leave consulting firms to start their own thing, right? Their own startup.
Yeah.
What made you decide, okay, actually, I mean, you joined your very successful, fast growing startup, but what made you pursue that instead of being like, okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and start something of my own?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of self like discovery first, which I did in my job search last year. I founded a dating app for groups to meet other groups in COVID. With a friend who's now a lawyer, and it was really fun. I loved doing the marketing, the brand. I guess it was my first taste of what it would be like, and now I've gone full circle and I get to do that sort of work for Jack and Jill. The reason I didn't found again is perhaps exactly what I just said. I should be taking more risk. I should be founding, and maybe if I was in America, I'd have the motivation and confidence to do so. But I feel like I still have a lot to learn, and actually, it's the best decision for me right now because I feel blessed to be learning from the talent I'm learning from at Jack and Jill. There's, I think, 12 ex-founders in such a small team that I get to be in the office with every day. Um, so the fact that I can learn from them, learn a lot more about AI and the technical toolkit, learn from the CMO and CEO that I report to is just exactly what I need right now.
Yeah, I was guessing the answer. I think one of the things I hear quite often is that is like you shouldn't just go ahead and start something. Sometimes joining a fast growing startup is actually one of the best decisions you can make, before doing something of your own, obviously. Um, the notion of generalist, right? I saw your post about being a generalist. I would consider myself a generalist. I studied, my undergrad was in biochemistry. I did my master's in the business area. My interest outside of professional stuff is more in history and then politics. Um, but I used to always feel that world rewards kind of the specialists, right? Do you think in this age of AI and the rapid change, is it better to be a generalist or a specialist, and why?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I actually don't think there's an obvious answer because I was listening to a podcast last week where the founder of Fear, who just raised a really successful Series A, were like, it's annoying to be a jack of all trades, like pick something and get really good at it. But then on the flip side, you have the co-founder of Anthropic who studied literature. I studied history, and she says so many technical skills can now be displaced by AI. That the number one skill to develop is storytelling, emotional intelligence, communicating, people skills. And it's not to say just generalists are good at those skills, but those soft skills are things that you can pick up very, very well with a humanities degree. Like studying history was all about storytelling and exercising judgment when facts weren't clear, being discerning of the facts. And that is kind of what you have to do with your LLM outputs. So, yeah, I obviously agree with the Anthropic co founder. I think if you're a humanities student, you're the best talent ever, but I'm biased because that's.
Fair enough. It's actually, I have a question down the line, but I think what you mentioned very much makes sense for me to ask this question right now. Is in a world where tools are democratized and building is becoming easier than ever, what actually differentiates people, right? Is it the taste? Is it the speed? Is it the distribution or storytelling you just mentioned, right? What creates real signal?
Yeah. For sure, AI is getting so good at so many things. One thing I find in my content workflows that it's not there yet on is taste. And I think this is where doom scrolling becomes helpful, like knowing what resonates with my generation. And I think this is why you see CMOs in America that are 21 years old. Like the CMO of Cluely is 21. I've seen the Fia girls so young, and every marketeer is now like very Gen Z. And that's because, you have the taste of what works with that audience. So maybe taste, but will AI also start to develop and build taste? Maybe. The skill I think is just like pure hustle, like just working really hard and having grit and brute force. Like you can learn anything now with AI. Like you can pick it up and find the ways if you, I think just working really hard and hustling is the underrated skill that AI is a mindset AI can't always do for you.
There's so many tools and products, and I feel like new tools and new products are also creating new workflows. How do you not get overwhelmed, and how do you like maintain your focus on which ones to focus on, really?
Yeah, I there's so many content AI tools that I need to just try and explore. But like as soon as I get good at one, it's like a new one's come out. So for sure. I think that a lot of them operate the same by LLM. So if you have a really good prompt maker, you can like the art of prompting works in different tools. And so it's more about nailing the ability to prompt than having to learn a new product. And any good new product should have a good UX so you can use it quickly and easily. Um, yeah, I'm constantly learning and evolving how I can do things better and quicker with AI. And it's just that is like the constant loop in my head and the way I'm kind of trying to upskill right now.
I- Speaking of upskilling, in one of our conversations, you briefly mentioned that women might be falling behind a bit in terms of AI adoption and skill development, right? Could you expand on that notion? What are you observing, and what do you see needs to change?
Yeah, I think anecdotally and visibly what I'm observing is fundamentally just less women at high growth AI startups. Um, there's a lot of structural reasons for that. But there is also within the women that are in AI UK tech, a 17% gender pay gap. And Harvard did a study about why that was. And one of the reasons is confidence and women being less confident to take risk or negotiate. And so that might be why less women are founding versus what feels like a traditional CV ticker or like gold star on paper, or why less women are going into roles where they think they're not qualified because of that confidence gap versus men. But like in this year, so these AI roles, they just no one's qualified in them. Everyone's learning, figuring it out and learning. So why is it that potentially, like anecdotally, how I felt as well was like, oh, am I going to be allowed to be an AI marketer? Can I be growth at Jack and Jill? Like, I've never done this before. Like, if you're smart and you work hard, which so many of my female friends are, like, you will figure it out. Like everyone else, you realize is in the industry. So yeah, I think a lot of it is confidence, and it worries me because 17% gender pay gap in tech, like, will only get worse if we don't try and like close that behavioral gap.
And what do you think can be done to change that?
I think the narrative in the media and the press about female founders needs changing. That's one cultural thing. There's been a lot of backlash against different female founders, Grace Beverly, the founder of Muse, Odd Muse. And so we should be better celebrating the wins and the risks they take and stop trying to put them down, which we have a bit of a British cultural way of doing. And then one thing that Jack, the AI career agent behind Jack and Jill, can do is give you salary benchmark data so that you can have data on how much you're actually worth, and then hopefully the confidence to go and negotiate a better role or find a better job that will pay you what you deserve and hopefully close the gap that way.
Jack and Jill, you just mentioned it, so I'm going to ask a question about it. Obviously, you are at Jack and Jill. You're funding growth. Um, I am familiar with Jack and Jill. I'm sure people in this space have heard of the name. Have heard the name. It's pretty recognizable. But I'm still going to ask you, what are you guys building, and what's the bigger kind of mission and long term vision behind it?
Yeah, I can give a summary. I do want to caveat that I joined the team a month ago, so I can't take credit for building Jack and Jill myself. But it is so exciting being able to grow. My role is to grow Jack users and acquire more users. We're now at over 100K, and for me, I just want to get that to like the millions. That's so exciting. But what the team have built is two agents, an AI career agent and an AI recruiter, Jill, that operate in a purely agentic marketplace, connecting people in jobs. Jack, the AI career side for candidates can do job searching, direct intros to the best job, salary benchmarks, like we mentioned. We help with interviews, and then Bill hires for companies way quicker and more cost effective than agencies.
In terms of your role, growth role is very prominent role at startups these days. It's one of the hottest roles there, and um, and I'm sure it changes kind of from startup to startup to a certain degree. But I'm curious, like, what does it actually entail in practice, and what do you use to it specifically?
What I do specifically is, so we're kind of building like two brands, three brands even at once. We have the Jack brand who needs to be witty and professional and resonate with people like me and you. The Gen Zs that we were talking about, that's who we need to market Jack to. And then we have the Jill brand, which is B2B, and to support and elevate the lives of talent that are recruiting. And then we have like the company marketplace, which are the founder brands. Um, I help across all three, but the thing that I spend most of my time on right now is the Jack brand and acquiring users in particular in San Francisco. And what that looks like on day to day, kind of if you picture the funnel, the marketing funnel, at the very bottom, it would be ads, conversion ads for paid media. So producing ads, like we said, with AI. That's why you might have seen me on Instagram shooting in the office, getting creators so that I get off your Instagram and other creators are in the ads. And then as we go up the funnel, we'll do like testimonials, interviews with people that love the product, and then top of funnel, like partnerships with podcasts, events, to build the Jack brand and acquire more people.
In terms of kind of go to market strategies, there's obviously the consumer focus, there's an enterprise focus. I'm curious, like, what made you specifically interested more on the consumer side of things?
I worked in beauty and really enjoyed the feeling of influencing what people do on a day to day through the active consumption. Consuming is such a big part of what every single human does on this planet every minute. And I feel like for me, having studied politics and doing a lot of political work when I was a lot younger, although I felt out of touch with politics, I do feel like one way to influence society in a massive way is through what people consume. And I find that really energizing. And Jack, as a consumer product, is to help people find fulfilling work. Work is a big part of what you do. And if you can feel fulfilled in your job because of a product that we've grown and delivered, that just feels so rewarding to have that like impact on people's individual lives.
Scrolling, you mentioned, is one of the ways you kind of understand the trends and seeing what's popping, what's hot, right? What are the other ways to study and stay up to date on consumer behavior right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's really hard, like, I can't switch off anymore. Scrolling TikTok used to be my nighttime activity, and now it's just, like, work, 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 because it's references, it's people I should try and work with, it's ideas I need to copy. Um, we are setting up a lot of social listening workflows, like Reddit and Twitter, X, contain a lot of hot topics and trends that it's good to automate and get alerts on what's popping, like you said, in those communities. It's also good to go direct to the horse's mouth and just speak to users. Like we do a lot of customer interviews and jumping on calls and learning what resonates with them and our specific ICP, our specific customer is important, as well as just seeing what's on the algorithm, what content's working, because that's helpful. But we also have a very specific customer in mind who is a candidate that wants to work in tech and AI and startups. So we have to think about what exact content works for them and have very clear competitors as well that we can map and reference.
Interesting. And based on what you're saying, this conversations, this interviews or research you do, what do you think our generation value most in a job search, right? And what feels non-negotiable today compared to previous generations?
Well, so I was job searching and landed in this job at the end of last year. And for me, it just felt so inefficient, like the time I was spending. Um, and maybe even not inefficient is the wrong word. I felt quite demoralized because I felt like I had a lot of energy and ambition and a good sense of where I wanted to go, which was consumer brand and growth. But when I went through these LinkedIn jobs, I would like never hear back. I would cold message people on LinkedIn and do coffee chats, and like they either replied or they didn't. Even if we had a call, it barely went anywhere. I even spoke to a lot of consumer companies in beauty, given that was where my experience was, and they said, sorry, but you're too generalist, like you're not siloed to any particular role, so we can't really see where we'd place you. Um, and so yeah, I just kept hitting walls, and so I feel like it's quite a demoralizing process and really broken. And I feel like when I see my friends, we can relate to that feeling of burning out if you're in a really busy job, or have a busy student life. Like, when are you meant to go and do all this cold networking and hustling you're meant to do to find a job? Like, it's just impossible. So the non-negotiable that's not there yet, but I hope to be there to help others, is having an agent like Jack that does it for you whilst you sleep, to find you a job that you're genuinely capable of doing, to make you feel confident and to match you with something that you're going to feel fulfilled and happy in.
In terms of finding meaning in a job, I mean, job market is obviously quite tough these days, but I feel like we're also, I mean, from conversations with my friends and it's really most people that you hear the notion of meaning come up quite often. People search for meaning in their jobs more often than money, really. Um, what are you saying? And like, how important is meaning for people in the job market right now?
Yeah, I think feeling fulfilled is really important. I think for me, I optimize for like learning, and that is another, like, there's financial salary and capital, but there's also career capital. Like if something's going to accelerate your career for 3 years and maybe not even pay you as much as corporate, like I actually think that you're generating so much more career capital that's worth more than what you would get paid. Um, you see people like in corporate jobs so unhappy and burning out, and not fulfilled or not having that meaning, but the salary is really good. But yeah, it's hard, and it's privileged to be able to walk away from it, but you can build capital in other ways, like the career capital I mentioned. I think finding like I'm a month into my job at Jack and Jill, I definitely feel more energized and more fulfilled because of that influence I feel like I'm having, or able to have. By influence, I just mean like direct impact in my work and be able to move quickly and not hit walls or process and bring a lot of energy to my work and actually see the end output of it versus just a pitch or a strategy that goes off into the abyss. Um, but yeah, I think it takes a lot of self-discovery to work out, and I'm not there yet, I'm not gonna preach, but it does you just have to chat to your friends, chat to Jack, and go through that self-discovery process of working out what would really energize you in your career.
I'm curious about your personal, opinion. For one thing, that you went through job search. You said and you're unhappy with the process when you were going through it, right? Um, and I'm sure there's quite few inefficiencies and problems. The entire process of you're applying, the interviews, etc. If you could change one thing about the entire recruitment process, what would you do?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, we're trying to change lots of things about the recruitment process. So, um, I mean, I personally would just love to take down LinkedIn. Like, I just think it's one of the most toxic apps out there. It I don't know if I should say this, but I remember scrolling LinkedIn so much when I was job searching and just it became so toxic. Like, there was so much um self-promotion that now I maybe am get learning how to do, and you have to play the LinkedIn game, but it's a lot of that and not a lot of genuine help or connections, I find. Like the cold applying doesn't really work, the cold messaging doesn't work. So making a better solution to LinkedIn is something I'd love to change. LinkedIn can still exist as a social media, as a social networking platform, but as a place to find jobs, I've just not believed it's the right I don't believe it's the right solution anymore.
I'm so happy and glad that you're being so candid and honest.
Too candid.
No, that's perfect. I guess I'm going to ask you my final question, and that kind of ties everything together from what we discussed, right? If we zoom out 10, 15 years, how should ambitious young people kind of think about building durable careers in an age where industries may not even look the same in next 5 years?
Yeah, I think, if you're ambitious, you're young, work somewhere where your hard work feels, like it can be rewarded and you can see the end output of it, and that where you can move fast. That's one thing that I wish I'd done a little bit sooner maybe. Or maybe it's just now's the time. We have these AI companies that are learning new workflows, new tools, they'll allow you to move at the same speed of them and pick them up really quickly, and then you become like the top of the game and using those products. Um, Whereas if you're in like a very big company or a corporate, you're likely going to be hit by process and not able to adapt and evolve with how quickly the industry is moving in AI. That
Well,
would be
Sophia,
my advice. It was probably very waffly. Sorry, I don't know if that was that helpful.
no, it was wonderful. Thank you so much, Sophia. It was a very interesting episode, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me, and feel free to send me anything else that could be helpful for your community or anything. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.